Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we are going to dig into the Dirties context, which is in a Spring Boot annotation. Let us just jump right into it, because in this situation right here, as many times before, then we have a Spring Boot project where we have some REST controllers, we have some entities, we have a H2 database. I've created this project by pressing File, New Project like this. And then I have chosen Spring Initializer, yes, Maven 17, yes, and I've added H2 like this, ticked off the H2 database, added JPA, Spring Data JPA like that. I've added the Spring Web part, like this, and I've also added Lombok, so I don't have to write all of the boilerplate codes myself. And then I pressed create and then finish, and then I got this project right here. I've already created some code because I've used it for other demonstrations, and that's why it's perfect for tonight's demo, which is where we go into the Spring Boot tests and we use it at Dirties context, because it is quite cool. It can actually reset the Spring Boot application context. So that means that if one test actually ruins the data for which another test actually expects just to be there, then we can use Dirties context. So we will say we'll call this some trying test like here, and I'll just add it. And we have a repository. I don't want the controller. I just copied into one of the other files. So let us just delete all of this code right here. So now I have a test right here. My message test, and then I assert equals. I assert that I have zero messages in my database, and the message repository here is quite simple. It is I use Spring Data, so that means that it's an interface that extends the JPA repository, and then the implementation is created automatically by Spring Boot. As you probably might know, then we have a message entity right here, and this entity right here, it has some annotations. That's because I'm storing the data in an H2 database. The table is automatically created by itself from these fields that I have down here, and we have also an ID with the auto generation strategy enabled. So this means that we will get a hibernated sequence created inside the H2 database. But this just means that Spring Boot and JPA will actually choose the most the best option for the situation. And with H2 that would end up with a sequence, and usually hibernate a H2 sequence where we would get our new IDs from. Then we have a message. This is just some kind of string. It could be a poet or something. Then we have an author who wrote that message, and then we have a timestamp on it. So it's quite simple. It's a quite simple entity that I have right here. And when I start up my test, I assert that I have 0 of those messages in my database. I don't have any at all. And then I can say message repository .save, and then I can create a new entity. And then I can, when I'm done saving this entity, then I expect that to be one entity there. So let us just say then we will say message entity like this, and then we will say build, and then we will build our entity. So this is Lombok, and actually this means that I can create new instances of my message entity by using the builder pattern. If you haven't tried it out, you definitely need to try it out. It is it will save you a ton of time. If you use constructors for initializing your creating new instances, then you would actually waste some time once in a while. When you create new fields, then you would if you use something like all args constructor with Lombok, then you would end up with an error. With the builder pattern, you would not end up with an error. You would just get a null value in a new field that you have just created. Enough about that. I'll just write author mic right here, and then we will say message hello. This is a test message. Yeah, it's okay, it's misspelled. And then we have save time. That could just be the timestamp now. That's fine. Then we are building that, we are saving that, and when we are done saving that, we actually don't need the entity, so I will not take the entity. Then we assert, just duplicate this line right here, move it down here, and we assert that now we have one message in the database, in the table. Let us try to run this test right here. It is a Spring Boot test. Yes, it is annotated with test. Yes. A good practice is also to add a display name. If you want a nicer name, then you can say this tests that we have that we can save a message like this. So now we have a nicer display name. This means that now you can actually see I have my message test right here. That is the name of the method. If I press play now, then I get the display name right instead. In the display name, that could be, yeah, look, we have a nicer description of what's actually going on. So this is quite cool. My test works. I'm actually happy. And then we can try something else. I'll just copy this whole thing. So I'll say Control D for duplicate. And then we'll say another message test. So here we're not asserting, here we're not asserting that. We can actually do something else. We will save a new entity like that. Here we have Mike's new entity, and then we will assert instead that. Then we will actually assert that that the ID is not null on this entity. Get ID. So get ID like that. Give me the ID. And if you're puzzled about my getters actually just without the get, that is because I have added a lombok. I've added this lombok annotation accesses right here, where I set fluent to true. That means that then the set and the get will be removed from the setters and the getters. Just a little, just a little trick. You can try to play around with it if you want to. Okay, so now we have two tests. We have another test, and we'll just name this another test, and then we have the original test. So let us try to see what happens now, and I'll just run both of them. So what happens now? Okay, so the first test ran okay. I actually created a new entity, and the ID was not null. It was actually taken from the ID was actually generated automatically for us, so I'm happy. The second test now fails. That is a little bit annoying because I just created this test, right, and we actually saw that it worked. Of course, we can do two things. One thing is actually that we could actually create a service to actually reset all of the data that would delete all, and then maybe we could insert a couple of messages so we always have a couple of messages, and then we know that we always have that given point that we can actually use. But we can also do something else. We can add something like Dirties context like this, and then we can say method mode, and then we say before method, and we can also say class mode. Then we can say class mode that could be before class or before each test method. Let's try that. This annotation actually goes both on the method and it also goes on the class. You can decide where to place it. This means that I can also place it here. Actually, I can actually set it here. If I know this is something that actually, if this is a method that actually dirties everything and makes a mess, then we can place it there. And let us press play and see what happens now. Now it's green, because what actually happened right now? Let us try to look at outputs. Let us try to see what actually happened. We actually got a new context in between. So let us see here. Oh, every time we see the spring right here, that means that now we actually, now the spring context is starting up. And that also means that we will get a new instance of the H2 memory database. Or because every time we are done with the spring context, whenever the spring context closes, then the memory database, the H2 memory database also closes down. And then when we start up the second time, then we actually get a new database again. It actually happened 3 times, and that is because we have annotated this. We have used this Dirties context right here. We have said that the method mode right here. We have said that before each test method, we should actually get a new context. That's what we say with this line right here. So before each test, we will get a new context, and then we also say that right here before each method right here. Then it should also we should also get one. I think we can delete this line right here, and then we can just have class mode before each test mode. Let us try to run this again and actually see what happens. See if we're happy or not. Some people don't like the Dirties context. I would say It is definitely it depends on which problem that you actually have and which problem that you have to save. But I would actually say that if you use the Dirties context, that means that then you will definitely get a clean sheet, so to say. It's just like to get a new, you just open up a new notice book and there's nothing is written there already. If you continue just by running test by test by test, then then it's just like be writing on someone else's notes, because it might, maybe it would not be you who actually wrote these tests, right? So let me say some trying, and we can say another trying test. So now I'm creating a new class just to show you which effect I will have right there. To begin with, I will just delete this Dirties context right here, and we will say this is a third test, and we have the same situation again. We have this is a fourth test that we have right here. In this situation right here, I'm actually going to now we're going to split it to two classes instead, and then we'll see what actually happens. So we have this fourth test that asserts that it asserts that there are no messages in the database before we start this. And then we will remove this one right here. But we can actually leave it. It should just fail, and then it should actually continue. Then we have this message controller test. This is one that I created earlier on. I'm going to ignore this for this right now. Ignore. Ignore. Okay, cannot. Let me just check right here. So I'll just say, disabled. Disabled, like this. So we will annotate it with disabled. That means that now this test will not be run when we run all of our tests. I think actually another test will actually run first. Let us just try that. So it might be okay in the first run. So we'll just run this one right here. Test. Maybe test here, it runs all of our tests, not just one. Let us see what happens now. And we have one skip, that's okay. Some trying to, now we have so we will remove this Dirties context right here. And we also want to see the successful steps. And we have the successful, we want to show all of them actually. We do not want to show the warnings, that's okay. So, let's try again. So now there are tests. Okay, so now we have failures. So expect a 0, but it was actually 2. So that is my message tests. Let us just go to that. Yeah, so now we have a class right here, and this is just to show you that it does not matter whether you're using, if you have had the test split on different classes. Then first we are calling this right here, and we can actually add some outputs. So let us just add some outputs. I'll just do that. We'll set some output here. Some trying tests that will pollute the database with with one case. This is one case, one message right here, and then we'll have another one that down here. Another test that will also pollute with one. It will also save one message, so it will also pollute. I'll pollute this with double L. So yes, then we get an output right there, and then we have the fourth test, and this would actually expect no messages in DB like this. So let's try to run all of the tests again. Then we'll just get some output so we can actually follow on what is actually going on. So, and here there are test failures, but we don't care about that right now. We want to see the output actually. So we want to see that we want to get the output test. We're going to get the output right. Forte expects no messages is right here, and then we have the other. Where is the other? Pollute. Here we got it. Pollute, yeah, some trying test that will pollute the DB with one message. That actually also failed because it expected 0, but it was actually 2. And then we have the expect. Okay, that's actually right here. Yeah, so first we have actually the fourth test expects no messages in the database. Why did that fail actually? That's maybe it did not fail. Then we have some trying with one message right here. Okay, test run. Okay, it actually did not fail. So that was okay because that actually ran first. So this test right here, it actually ran first and it was actually fine. It was happy. And we actually got down to the end right here. So that means that if we see the end, then it was actually fine. We can should also get a fine reports also. So here we have the end. So how do we solve this? And of course, as you probably know, you can both add the dirties to the polluting test. And I would actually recommend you to do that. So if you have a test that you know that this is actually polluting, then you can actually say dirties context, and then we can say class mode, and then we can say when we're done with this class, then we think that we should actually clean up. So class mode after class. So this means when we're done running all of this tests in this class right here, then we will actually clean up the context. A new database will be created, and then the other tests will actually not fail due to this. Of course, now they will. So let us just see what happens now. And one failure. Let us just see here. Expected 0, but there was 1. That is my message test. Let's go over here. That's actually over here. That's because we actually have 2 methods in the same class where that actually bothers each other. And of course, there we will just enable our dirties context right here. And here we will say we know that it is the first method. We know that this is this method right here. We know that this is the polluting method. So instead of just adding it to everything, and we can just add it to the method. And then instead of saying something with class mode, then we will say something with method mode, and then we will say method after method. So please clean up after yourself after method. Create a whole new Spring Boot context. Create a whole new database because we also get the Spring Boot context. And with the Spring Boot context, we have this bucket where we put an instance of all of our controllers or repository implementations or services. That will be exactly one of each. Those will be put in that bucket, and that bucket is just called Spring Boot context. So do not be scared about Spring Boot context. It's just the whole environment, the whole setup, the whole bucket where you have all of these services, components, REST controllers, etc. Those are just lying down there, and then when we refresh them with this annotation right here, that means that after this method, when it's done running, then we will delete the bucket. We will not delete the bucket. We will empty the bucket. They will fill it up with fresh water that has not been polluted yet. That is how to see it. I think that was a very, very good analogy. Let us try to run the test again and see if we get a green mark this time. Dirties context. Yeah, it's quite cool. You can save a lot of code because or else the alternative is that you code yourself out of it, and then you, when you're done saving those messages, then you would delete all of them again, or you will try to get the initial state. But I think Dirties context is quite cool, and if you are playing around with, if you want some test data, then I have created another video with post data that actually shows post construct with the post construct annotation, where you can actually see how to create data that will be there every time you start up your Spring context, and you will have this data created automatically. I can also show it quickly, actually. So I'll just create it. If I create a new class right here, I'll name this create data on startup, like this. This is a class. We'll annotate this with components. So this is a component. Then I want to add this Orlax constructor right here. Then I'll say private final, and then I need my repository. So I need my repository, message repository right here, repository like this. And then I'll create a method, private void, or I think it's okay, it's private actually. I don't care actually. I'll just remove the scope to remove that and then run on startup. So this means that every time we start up our Spring context, then because we have post construct and annotated right there, then we can call this code right here, and then we can actually save some entities, message entity.builder built like this. So now I'm creating some entities. I can do that sometimes. Of course, now they all have they don't have any data in them. There's no message or anything, but of course I could add that. So blah blah blah. And that means that whenever I start up my context, now I'll have all of that data automatically created. So let us try to run the test again. Now we should get some errors because we will always have four messages being created automatically for us, like that. And of course, if you only want this to run when you are testing, then you can add something like active profiles. Profile. My test. So it's only when the profile my test is enabled then that this component will be created at all. So that means that now I can go to my another test for right here. Then I can say active profiles, and I can say that the active profile right here is my test. So that means that now I will actually get all of these tests right here. That means that I will actually expect that to be 4 to begin with, because we just created 4, and then I will actually expect that to be 5 when I'm done running this test right here. Let me just remove this method right now. It does not make sense. So we have this test right here that, we assert 4 before we do anything. Then we save and create a new one. Then we assert that there's 5 messages in the database. Let us run this test right here. I just want to show you that it's easy to create it a fixed data set. And it's actually green because there were 4. That's quite awesome. I'm quite happy with this outcome right here. And this also means that if we run this, of course, if we run this test again, then it should be okay, because the other class does not have active profile my test. So when we clear the method right here, when we clear everything, then I think we should have Dirties. I think we should actually have before methods, just to make sure that it's just before this method is running. And also after, actually. Before and after. Isn't there one? I think there's one for both. Isn't there one? Before method. After method. Okay, let us start with after methods like this. I think when we change profile, actually, then it needs to create a new context, right? So, sorry. It's green, it's happy. We clean up after ourselves right here, and because we're not running with the actual profile of my test, that means that then we will not have all of this code run, except for this test right here. Here we have that actual profile is my test right there. That means that I will actually have the 4 cases that I can then play around with if I want to. Okay, not cases, sorry, messages. 4 messages that I can play around with right here. So that's actually what I wanted to show you. I will push this code as usual to my GitHub account, and then you can find it there if you want to try it out yourself. At Dirties context, it is definitely useful, especially if you're many people on a project, and then you can actually clear out the data after each run. Totally, because it's not just the database. It's also if you have something on one of your services or component. If you have some member variables right there, a counter, then you will get the counter refreshed. It is for the whole context. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening, and hope to see you again soon. And thank you for commenting. Thank you for commenting. All of those of you who are actually commenting. Thank you. It means a lot. Bye bye.